What's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about Mortal Kombat Onslaught and how to not suck at it. I've assembled a list of the top 10 things you definitely want to know if you're just getting started, so let's get into it. To quickly introduce myself, my name is Khasino and I've been playing Mortal Kombat Onslaught as well as making content for the game since the start of the early access. I make tier lists, relic guides, and all sorts of other community resources for the game, which we'll touch on at the end of this video. I'm going to try to keep things brief, but there will be timestamps in the video description if you're looking to skip around. Alright, on to the tips. Number 10. Spend early crystals wisely. Easily the number one most asked question I get is, what should I be spending my crystals on? So I wanted to answer this first. If you want to get off to the best possible start, you mostly want to save your crystals. But there are a few things worth buying early on. Primarily, character XP. Character levels are insanely powerful at low levels, and there's a ton of content you can clear just by significantly out-leveling it. I made a free-to-play account, and on it I've spent about 500 crystals on character XP doing the 40,000 XP for 125 crystals exchange. I've also spent 150 crystals on a single coins exchange, which got me 150,000 gold coins. My free-to-play account is barely 3 days old, and I've already fully cleared all of the currently available story chapters, as well as both Goro and Quan Chi boss towers up through stage 4. Now we'll be talking about the best way to spend crystals on summoning banners later in this video, but for this entry, I wanted to highlight how much more early progress you can achieve with a few small crystal investments. This tip is actually directly related to the next tip, which is number 9. Check before spending crystals. So while I do advise spending a portion of your early crystals on character XP and coins, it's very important that you do so only as a last resort. While it is very important to beat higher stages of boss tower as early as you possibly can, a delay of a day or two is not the end of the world. You don't want to resort to spending crystals as soon as you get stuck on content. First, you want to consider daily reset, which happens every day at 5 p.m. Pacific time. If you're an hour or two away from daily reset, just hang out until after reset when you'll get a good amount of additional coins and character XP. You'll also want to check the daily login calendars. The new player login rewards calendar is very generous, providing you, for example, 500,000 coins on day 3. So you wouldn't want to spend a bunch of crystals on coins if you have 500,000 coming to you the very next time you log in. Another great source of resources you always want to check are your achievements. New players get all sorts of resources for easy to accomplish goals. For example, you might be just about to get 100,000 character XP as soon as you collect a single new mined character, or 40,000 coins for collecting one more head piece of gear. Waiting an hour to spend the 10 skull orbs that you'll get for free from dailies could result in you also getting 100,000 character XP, which is not something most players typically consider, so always check your achievements first and only spend crystals as an absolute last resort. Of course, the main reason to speed up your progress is because number 8. Gear is everything. Many players make the mistake of thinking that Arena is the most important game mode since it pays out crystals. In reality, the path to power is through Boss Tower. While early on you can surge ahead by upgrading character levels, by the time you reach endgame, gear will be what truly separates the strong from the weak. For example, here's a tier 4 torso piece from my main account. It's providing 12,500 health, plus another 4% health, 12% attack, 7% critical damage, and 1% critical chance. And that's just one gear piece. You can get 5 more just like it. The thing about gear is that it's incredibly random. Which tier you get is random, which gear set you get is random, which substats you get are random, so the only way to get really good gear is to constantly be farming it. The sooner you have a steady income of high tier, high rarity gear, the sooner you can start investing in valuable pieces. Not to mention that all of the high tier and high rarity gear that you won't use is worth more gear XP to level up the pieces you like even faster. As a new player, you want to try and complete sets, even if it's with tier 1 common garbage, because just unlocking set bonuses will give you a massive surge in power. By cobbling together gear sets as soon as I could get a hold of the pieces, I was able to set my Scorpion up with plus 12% critical chance and plus 50% critical damage, making his spear hit considerably harder on a crit. Another way to optimize collecting resources is to number 7. Claim Gong efficiently. So the first thing to note is that your Gong reward income increases the farther you progress in story mode, So if you're a new player and you're planning to play farther into the story, hold off on claiming your Gong rewards so that you can build up rewards at a faster rate. However, the key part of this tip actually pertains to the Gong rewards themselves. Some of the materials you receive are capacity limited. For example, as of the recording of this video, the Gong can only store 2 gear chests. This means that as soon as you see 2 gear chests in your Gong, you want to claim your rewards immediately. Even if your Gong isn't maxed out, you want to do this because any time spent collecting rewards while you already have 2 gear chests is time that can't possibly be spent earning you more gear chests. By claiming Gong rewards as soon as you see those gear chests, you're resetting the opportunity to receive more, meaning you'll be able to level up your gear faster than players who don't know this handy trick. But of course, the easiest way to score an advantage over other players is to... Number 6. Position your teams properly. Understanding which characters will target which enemies is a key part of capitalizing on affinity advantage. Targeting priority is determined by a character's class. In the future, I plan to make a video dedicated entirely to classes and their targeting rules, but for now, here are the basics. Defenders are melee fighters who will literally steal aggro away from other melee fighters, meaning they will clash with an enemy frontliner and force enemy melee units to target them. Warriors are melee fighters who also look to clash against frontline enemies, especially defenders. Assassins are also melee fighters, but they typically will have a unique mechanic which will allow them to either dive straight into the backline or focus out a particularly weak enemy. If you're having trouble taking out a backline enemy, definitely consider running an assassin. Attackers are ranged characters who tend to target enemy frontliners, and they deal a lot of area of effect damage, meaning you want to position them where they can hit multiple enemy frontliners when possible. Supports are ranged characters who provide a variety of utility effects like healing, buffing, or debuffing, and generally target the same way attackers do. Generally, you'll use them just to fill in anywhere in your backline. And finally, snipers are ranged characters who immediately prioritize attacking backline enemies across from them. Snipers are another great option for quickly focusing out a pesky backline enemy. Of course, you'll also need to make sure that you... Number 5. Gear characters optimally. I have been getting asked pretty much non-stop about the ideal gear sets for each character. So surely, I should just make a graphic that shows the best sets for each character, right? Well, there's actually a good reason I haven't already done that. And it's because there are more factors to consider than just which character the gear is for. I'll give you an example. Let's say you ask me, hey Khasino, what are the best gear sets for Noob Saibot? Well, Noob Saibot is a defender, so I'm going to advise that you build him with health, defense, and tenacity. Now, let's say your team consists of Noob Saibot and Quan Chi. Well, this changes things quite a bit. Quan Chi's passive provides Netherrealm teammates with vampirism on any critical hits from their basic attacks. This means that now, if you were to drop the tenacity and build your Noob Saibot with a critical chance set instead, he would heal himself by attacking much more frequently. Quan Chi's passive provides additional attack to Netherrealm allies as well, meaning that unlike before, Noob Saibot landing a critical hit now will actually deal a moderate amount of damage as it's boosted by that higher attack. I can provide many other examples, but another very common situation is when a player is running 2 god tier defenders. Let's say you have Undying Shao Kahn and Arctica Sub-Zero. Individually, you want to build them both as pure tanks. However, if you're running both of them, you're better off building Arctica Sub-Zero as a bruiser and letting him deal more damage while letting Undying Shao Kahn handle the bulk of the tanking. The actual best way to gear your characters is often roster and team specific. But in lieu of literally listing off my recommended gear sets for each and every character and how those recommendations can change in a variety of ways, I can at least provide you with a baseline for how to evaluate which equipment will be the best fit for each character. Defenders come in 2 flavors. Tanks and bruisers. You can tell them apart by checking their skills. Tanks will either have a taunt or a defense boost, if not both, while bruisers will have all damage dealing abilities. Tanks typically want health, defense, and tenacity gear sets, while bruisers generally want attack and health sets. Warriors, assassins, attackers, and snipers typically want attack and critical chance sets. If their skills or synergies mention any bonuses to critical chance, then you want to prioritize a critical damage set instead of attack. Supports have a wide variety of playstyles, but they generally fall into offensive and defensive types. If they're defensive, like a healer, you usually want to build them the same as a defender with health, defense, and tenacity sets, while you'll usually build the offensive supports with attack and critical chance sets. Haste set gear is complete and utter garbage and should never be used under any circumstances. Mastery sets are pretty much never used unless for some specific reason you really need to ensure landing a particular status effect on a defender with high tenacity. That being said, you do want to make sure to Number 4. Play around the status effects. Understanding status effects goes a long way towards optimizing your gameplay. Like some of the other topics, I'll probably dedicate an entire video to this topic in the future, but I at least wanted to include some of the basics. Many status effects can completely turn the tide of a battle, so it pays to know what you're working with and what you're up against. Burn, for example, continuously removes special meter over time, so if you find that you're struggling against an enemy arena team after a certain enemy character uses their special ability, at level 4 and above, Scorpion's auto ability Flaming Flip Kick applies burn to the target enemy. At level 3 and above, Scorpion's special can also apply burn. This can delay the enemy special and give you enough time to eliminate them, avoiding their special ability altogether. Like what I did to this poor enemy Sub-Zero in Arena on my free-to-play account. After almost 40 seconds, he was finally ready to use his special. Unfortunate. Another status effect that can make all the difference to play around is Marked, which makes enemies way more likely to receive an incoming critical hit. This means when using a character like Deadeye Aaron Black, it makes sense to hold off on using your other character's special abilities until after using Deadeye Aaron's special, since once an enemy is marked, you're far more likely to land a devastating critical hit with everyone else. Pay attention to status effects and learn to play around them to maximize your team's potential. Speaking of maximizing your potential, you'll also want to Number 3. Build a wide roster. When it comes to hero collector type games, there are typically two schools of thought on how to build out your roster, and the more popular one I've found is usually incorrect. Building for a tall roster means investing in a small amount of characters, maybe 4 to 6, and putting as much power as you possibly can into mainly just those characters. This approach will definitely allow you to climb arena ranks more quickly, securing yourself more crystals and arena tokens, but it will hold you back from progressing in game modes that require a wider variety of characters, like Boss Tower, which will greatly limit your income of other resources like gear, coins, and ability tomes. The alternative is to build for a wider roster, which means spreading your resources across more characters, which will definitely limit your arena potential at first, but instead allows you to progress through most of the other game modes much more quickly. I recommend leaning more towards wide roster for a couple reasons. The first is that the resources you'll get just from the 4 boss towers will definitely outpace the small amount of additional crystals you could be getting from arena. However, a wide roster also makes you more adaptable to future meta shifts. If you manage to summon a game-changing new featured character who has excellent synergies with otherwise less popular characters, you're more likely to have them at least partially invested in already, and you'll be more likely to have spare gear to equip them with. Of course, to have the right characters to work with, you'll also need to Number 2. Summon wisely. So let's talk about what everyone has been asking. What should you be spending your crystals on, and which summoning banner should you be using? As of this recording, excluding the daily free summon, which of course you should do every day, there are 4 banners: Featured Fighter Summon, Apprentice Summon, Fighter Summon, and Relic Summon. Featured Fighter Summon requires Master Orbs, which come from daily quests and can also be purchased with crystals. If you don't want to gamble on getting a featured character, you can actually guarantee receiving them by performing 80 summons. This pity summon does not roll over to the following featured fighter banner, so make sure to save up until you can afford 80 summons so that you can ensure that you get the featured character. I'll repeat this. Don't spend Master Orbs on featured fighter summon unless you can afford at least 80 summons to guarantee the featured character. This is where you want to spend your crystals. Now, you don't actually have to dump the crystals into Master Orbs as soon as you get them. You can hold on to the crystals and wait to convert them until the banner you're waiting for rolls around. As a new player, your best chance to jump the meta will be to wait for a new featured character who has strong synergy with several characters that you already have built up, at which point you can simply guarantee yourself the new featured character and start bodying fools. I do want to note the featured fighter summon pity does carry over to itself, meaning the next time that exact same banner rolls around, you will have the pity progress you left off at. As for Skull Orbs, the Apprentice Summon is easily going to be your best option as a new player. Apprentice Summon is much cheaper than both Fighter Summon and Relic Summon, plus you can score both characters and relics. The drawback to Apprentice Summon is that your odds of pulling a 5-star character or an epic relic are atrocious. However, as a newer player, you want to get the most bang for your buck. So I strongly recommend doing Apprentice Summon until you've collected most of the 3-star characters and most of the common and uncommon relics. Not only will you be providing yourself with more character options for 3-starring story and chasm stages, but you're also going to score a lot more early character XP from achievements just by unlocking more characters. Once you reach the point where only 4-star and 5-star characters or only rare and epic relics will actually provide you the power boost you need, that's when it makes sense to switch over. I'd recommend doing Apprentice Summon for at least your first week. However, if I had to give just one tip, it would be this. Number 1, join the community Discord. Now this might sound like shameless promotion, but I wholeheartedly believe that this is the single most helpful thing you can possibly do to get off to a strong start in Mortal Kombat Onslaught. Not only do we have a treasure trove of useful resources including infographics like tier lists and relic guides, but we also have boss tower strategy guides for each stage, status effect information, leaks of upcoming content so you can plan ahead, and a whole lot more. Of course, easily the biggest advantage to joining the Discord is the ability to chat with other experienced players. This server has been around since the start of the early access, so we have tons of players on there who can answer all sorts of questions for you in real time. So yeah, if I had to give you one tip that will help you more than anything else, it would honestly be that. Join the community Discord and get instant access to every helpful resource we put out all at once. And right before we wrap up, I wanted to quickly answer a couple questions I've seen popping up a lot. Firstly, how do you limit break a relic? Simple. You upgrade that relic by feeding it a copy of itself. You can limit break a relic up to 5 times, meaning relics can reach a max level of 30. Another common question, how do you do the Fuse a Fighter weekly quest? This one is simply worded terribly, and NRS needs to change this immediately. It's actually referring to soul binding a character, which you can do by going to Collection, choosing Soul Bind, and then adding Affinity Souls. But alright, this video's gone on long enough. If you found this video helpful, you can say thank you by leaving me a thumbs up. If there's a topic you want me to cover in a future video, definitely let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for checking out this video, and I will see you guys real soon. Until next time, peace!